Good morning, traders. Happy Monday, and welcome back to the Trader Bacon Show. Sorry, I appear to be having some technical difficulties over here right as the show starts. Anyway, welcome back to the show. So glad to be able to hang out with you guys again today as usual. And we're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to have a great show in store for you. But first and foremost, want to take care of a little bit of business. We will be giving away 3 Apex Trader funding evaluations during the course of this show. So you're going to see in the chat in just a moment, you're going to see the eval form. So make sure to get that filled out before the completion of the show, and you will be in the running for one of those. Also, last week's show, of course, we had 3 winners. Last week's winners are, let me see if I can get these pronounced correctly, Barry, Rungano, and Emmanuel. Congratulations to you folks. You should have already gotten all of the information on that. And hopefully you are working your way through those as well. So congratulations to you folks. Make sure to get those filled out for today's show, and we'll be announcing this week's winners on next week's show. Also want to let you guys know, Apex Trader funding right now, 80% off evaluations any size. Go to apextraderfunding.com. Use promo code Benzinga. This will always get you the best price available at any time at Apex Trader Funding. So make sure to take full advantage of that right now while they're deeply discounted and enjoy the perks there. Also, just want to let you guys know, without letting too much out right now, I've got a lot of cool things going on at The Forged Trader. So make sure, if you aren't already doing so, follow me at The Forged Trader on all the socials. Trader with a 3 on TikTok. All the rest of them are spelled properly, but it's The Forged Trader. So to make sure to check that out as well. You can also subscribe to updates at theforgetrader.com/join. We're going to be implementing some pretty fun and novel things, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, that I've been working towards and working on. So anyway, that's all of the announcements for today. And let's go ahead and welcome Kyle to the show. Kyle, full-time airline pilot and also successful trader, is going to share with us some of the key ideas that have helped him get over the hump to consistently successful, consistently profitable, and qualified to be on the show. So let's welcome Kyle on today's episode of the Trader Bacon Show. Welcome to the Trader Bacon Show, where we showcase everyday traders that are getting funded, paid, and bringing home the bacon. Are you ready? Because the Trader Bacon Show starts right now. Hey, Kyle, good morning. How's it going?
Good. Good morning, Gates. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Other than a little technical difficulties, literally right as the show began. So my apologies for the sloppiness of that beginning right there for everybody out there. Well, Kyle, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for taking some time and sharing some insight with us today. Well, how's everything been going in your world of trading in the last few weeks? I know the last few weeks have brought some interesting dynamics. So I'm kind of curious about the immediate with you.
Yeah, I mean, immediately, like I said, the last few weeks have been very just interesting. The market doesn't really seem like it's following a lot of, I guess, normal behavior that as I'm used to interpreting it. So I guess in turn, it's recognizing, for me, it's recognizing that, hey, something seems a little different. I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter what it is, but I need to make sure that I adapt what I am doing to accommodate. And sometimes just doing nothing is a very proactive decision.
Absolutely.
And it's just recognizing, like today, for example, I just kind of recognize that, you know what, today's probably a day, but just really do nothing.
Well, all-time highs certainly bring out a particular dynamic, and you know, as a NASDAQ trader, of course, we are sitting. I'm a NASDAQ trader. We're sitting here at all-time highs. We also have so much going on in the world of announcements and rate cuts, potential rate cuts, I should say, and things like that. So, of course, the whole trader community, while they're not inactive, a lot are lying in wait, just trying to figure out what's going to happen before pulling that trigger. And of course, that affects what we see in the chart. So it's nature of the beast. And I think you're right. I wish I had taken the same advice actually right before we started everything up. I had been sitting in a trade for quite some time and I got stopped out. Would have been nice to sit on my hands today, but you know, you got to take those opportunities when you see them. Now, let's take a step back, man. How long have you actually been trading at this point?
Well, I guess I'm going to answer it in twofold. I've been participating in the stock market for probably about 7 or 8 years, all said and done, through stocks, options, and things like that. I've been doing futures and kind of developed full time into futures for about 4.5 years.
Okay. Now, for you, was there a big transition between, stocks and options and really more of that active intraday trading? Was that a big shift for you?
Not really. I kind of did them both. I didn't even know what futures were until about 4.5 years ago. A good friend of mine, kind of let's call him my trading partner, he was just like, "Hey, we should do futures." And we both convinced ourselves that we would be great at it.
Right.
But at the time I was like, I don't even know what futures are. It sounds really mystical. I mean, so it's just kind of a learning curve. And I found out just after playing around with it that I was like, wow, this is really, I like this. Like, this is fun. This is, I liked it for all the wrong reasons. I enjoyed it a little too much. But then I also was convinced that I could also be good at it. And that, it took about 4 years of not being good at it to finally figure out how to wrap my head around what was going on and how.
Well, and I think that's like anything that, anything significant that we do. There's a big learning curve with the world of trading. And that's one of the things that I do try to highlight on this show is, a lot of people will, they'll see a YouTube channel that'll make big promises and, they expect that they're going to learn something and 6 months later, they're going to be rolling in it, and smoking cigars on their private island. Obviously it does not work that way. And there is a big growth curve, and it's not just strategy, it's mindset, it's psychology, it's emotional regulation, things like that as well. So for you, as you went through this process, what were some of the biggest roadblocks that you faced in that 4-year stretch until you were able to start to see the light, so to speak?
I think some of one of the biggest roadblocks had to do with probably focusing my attention on trying to fix the wrong problem.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is, I spent a long time trying to figure out okay, what is the strategy that I need to be successful? How do I do this? And then truth be told, there's probably 8 million ways to make money in the stock market. Or on futures. There is no this is the answer. Right. But I had to figure out what am I the most comfortable with doing? And then the next probably 2.5 years was spent on how do I fortify my mentality to be able to sit down and execute on the plan and to stick with it? Not to start engaging in gambling, behavior, whether it's loss aversion or doubling down on a bad call, and just really stick to the plan. And really kind of came to, for me, it became to, as like Justin Halpern always says, is that, the best loser wins. I had to learn to take a loss and be just unemotional about the loss. On the flip side, I had to also learn how to be unemotional with the win.
Right.
Right. And then it was recognizing, and it took a few years of really proactively working on this, recognizing when my emotions and my wanting to assert my will on the market started to creep into my trading decisions. And then just realizing that was the time to pull the plug. And I've gotten a lot better at it. And that was kind of really the turning point for me, was not having some magical strategy that all of a sudden made everything make sense. It was just realizing my own personal limitations within trading.
And that's, of course, one of the biggest keys that we hear successful traders talk about over and over and over again. And the reality is that there's as many ways to go on tilt as there are different strategies that could be successful. Was there something that you recognized in yourself that you repeated over and over and over again that was a big struggle for you to get through? Or was it just sort of that generalized, I just need to sort of tame the emotions?
I think for me, it's more just the generalized, I need to tame the emotions. It was, I think with trading, I have a very short-term memory. I could blow up, 20 evals and 7 PAs in one day. And then tomorrow I'll make $100 and completely forget about the tilt that I went on the day before.
Right.
So I think as whole, it was just regulating the day-to-day aspect. And for me, it came from quit trying to earn it all in one day. Focus my attention on eating the elephant one bite at a time. It's just, I can replace, I mentioned this before, I can replace my work salary doing what I do full time by just earning a $60 daily average through Apex. And there are 20 accounts that we're allowed to have. So it doesn't take much, but it is very ungratifying to only earn $60 to $100 a day in an account. It just doesn't check off those mental boxes you want to see, because you want to see those big victories. So that was probably the hardest thing for me, was learning to be patient. And that was really, I said there's a few things. It was developing the mentality that allowed me to be patient with my trading and be patient with the success, wealth earned slowly tends to grow faster, or tends to grow bigger.
Well, and you brought up an interesting point, that satisfaction with what ultimately is what most traders would consider a relatively small day. We know the effect of compounding and multiplication and all of these things, but one of my mentors and friends early on would often talk about the fact that successful trading is inherently unsatisfying, right? When you lose a trade, of course, that's unsatisfying. But even when you win a trade, there's always that I could have gotten in earlier, or I could have stayed in a little longer, or if I'd just taken it out at the at the apex of the move, which is unrealistic. At the end of the day, if we can get our chunk of the move, that makes us winners. But we see those like, oh man, I'm $500 in the money per account right now, and it comes back down, and you're $250 in the money when you get stopped out, and it's still you feel like I missed an opportunity. And there is a lot of work that goes into that emotional regulation. Now, was there any specific things that you did to sort of get through that cycle?
I think some of the stuff that I did was I really had to work on just the compulsivity that I was having with trading. The want and desire to just sit at my computer and look at charts all day, every single day. Because that's unhealthy too. I think for me, that is an unhealthy trading mentality so I had to work a lot on that. And the way that I was able to do that was by focusing more intentionality on my family. And, maybe let's just say that the reasons why I want to be successful with trading. I want to trade to live my life. I don't want to live my life to trade. And it's very hard to keep those priorities in order unless I could anchor myself on something. So I started putting guardrails up on me that says, okay, I'm only going to trade between this time and this time, and forcing myself to do it. Now, it's all an act it's all self-imposed, rules and guardrails. But if I couldn't lack the discipline to just close my computer at a certain time of the day, then I had to really say, if I can't do this, then maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Right. So I gave myself small goals initially.
Well, and that's a realization that we all have to face, because at the end of the day, the only way you lose at trading is to quit, in theory, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't lose everything in the interim. And having that realization that if I can't beat this, that's probably an indication of something that I need to look a little bit deeper into. And I think that's critically important for most traders, and maybe something that traders don't want to face, but ultimately they have to if they want to get past some of the bigger struggles and challenges that we all face, every single one of us. And I always like to say to the audience, you're not alone. We all go through this. It's just a question of, are we willing to go that extra mile to get past it and to see the light at the other side? So
and I think everybody's answer to that is going to be different in some way, shape, or form. It was a big part of 4 years of failure was that I kept trying to copy other people. I kept trying to be like, well, this is what this person's doing, this is what I have to do. And in all reality, it was just like, it works for them, that doesn't mean it's going to work for me. And because at the end of the day, I would always hold on a second. Hey guys, I asked you to be quiet. Can you please?
Parenthood is always fun dynamic with parents.
3 kids. I warned them beforehand. I said, "Hey guys, you got to be quiet if you come in here." And I guess they forgot, but that's part of it.
Speaking of your why,
yeah, well, exactly, and that's so anyway. So I had to just kind of figure out that I can't follow other people, and then you find out too that there are a lot of people on the internet who seem really, really good and really, really smart in trading that don't really tell you the full story. They don't show you the full picture. And just finding a modicum level of transparency in people that sell stuff with trading and how to do it was proved a lot more difficult than I thought it would be.
Yeah. The dynamic things are the things that get attention. That doesn't necessarily mean that those are the things that are meaningful or true.
Yeah. And I used to to touch on your point that you said earlier, is I really kind of had to look at trading from the side of if this is exciting, I'm doing it wrong.
Right.
And because we shouldn't be chasing excitement, that is chasing an emotion. And I remember back when I was doing, a lot of stock and options, I boiled down almost everything I could do into 3 things. It was either fear driven, greed driven, or hubris driven. And once I kind of figured out, once I could put my emotions and decisions through a litmus test on what's driving this, it made me a much better decision maker when it came to that. Now, unfortunately, with futures, I couldn't translate to that because the futures trading happens it happens too fast.
Yeah.
I couldn't sit there and dwell on a position or think about buying a stock for 3 days, before going and put it through a litmus test.
For sure. Well, speaking of the things that have made you successful, of course, we like to talk about strategy with the caveat of this doesn't mean jump from one strategy to another. Just another great example of how different strategies can be successful in the world of trading. We talked about before, as many ways as there are to be successful, there's as many ways to go on tilt. All of these things sort of have to come together in one sort of formula, but that has to be personalized to you and to what makes sense for you. You mentioned just because this is successful for one person doesn't mean it's going to be successful for another. But by exploring these different ideas, of course, what I like to do is share the sort of the ignition of, is there something in here that could be meaningful to me in the way that I trade? Or, of course, for the new guys, well, maybe this is an opportunity to find something that's meaningful to you. Well, let's go ahead and pull up the charts and let's talk a little bit about what it is that you've developed for you that has made you finally successful after 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I lost my mouse. Where'd my mouse go? There it is. All right. All right. Yeah, I moved my chart on my screen for a second. Can you still see it? Yes, you can. So there's two kind of parts of my trading and my system that I use. Is the first and foremost part is I use a system that's called inbox wave. And it's an order flow type indicator system. Everything that you see on my chart here is part of the inbox wave suite. I'm not going to get into the details too much of the details of reading it and how it presents itself. But essentially what I look for is what I would call an exhaustion pattern on the inbox wave system. So just to kind of highlight what that looks like, here was an exhaustion pattern or side that I saw this morning, and I actually did take this trade. And essentially, we're setting new highs on the day. And each time as price was pushing up on a new high, I would see a decrease in the interest in buying going on across these numbers that represent across the top of these waves. Now, just having a decrease in interest in buying doesn't mean sellers are going to push it down, but it's just, okay, I have no interest in buying, but I got to see some interest in selling. And then some other little things that kind of went into it is, okay, so I got exhaustion across the buy and across the top. This middle graph, this histogram, is kind of like a supply and demand. Okay. I had a lot of demand coming into the market in this up wave compared to this up wave, and they effectively were unable to move the needle. So buyers are trying and they're not able to. So that's a good reason. This is, okay, this validates this exhaustion pattern. And then as I was coming down here to a cumulative delta type graph, I just see, okay, I'm actually negative on the cumulative delta while I'm at all-time highs. So that kind of culminated everything into the whole picture shows that buyers are exhausted, and I'm starting to get some signs that sellers are stepping in right around here. So then once it pushed up here one more time with zero effort in buying whatsoever, for me, that was the time to go short and take a short. Now, the question is how long do you hold the short? Well, that's the $1 million question.
Of course.
And for me, kind of going back to it, is I quit trying to maximize every trade that I had, and I just had to figure out what trade checks my boxes and checks my goals while giving me a high probability I'm going to get filled at a win every single time. So I trade to a much smaller target than I used to, but ultimately it's led towards higher success and being happier with smaller gains. But
well, yeah. I'm sorry, that becomes a big part of the process. Is it's not just about the strategy and what gets you in, but it's also what gets you out. And that could be on the winning side or the losing side, but that's a key component to long-term success.
Absolutely. Managing the trade and managing your accounts is crucial and critical. I mean, it's just, Apex gives us a phenomenal tool to be able to trade multiple accounts at once. And, one of the things that I do is I don't trade all my accounts at the same time. I'll take one trade in half my accounts, and then I take the second trade in the other half of the accounts. And for me, a lot of that it allows me to not emotionally tie myself to everything. So I can take a losing trade in some accounts and not spiral or tailspin from it. And then completely reset to have a good mental focus to take that next trade because I'm doing it on a fresh set. I mean, it's a way to spread the risk out is what it is.
For sure. And of course, when you have that sort of mindset, those moments that, again, some of us still continue to feel to this day, if we go off the rails on one set of accounts, at least it's only a set. It's not the whole package.
Exactly. And then the other thing too, so I mentioned there's two pieces to my trading. The other piece to my trading is I participate in a trade room hosted by Bob Amico at targetstradingpro.com. And I kind of use his commentary because he's a phenomenal order flow trader. And I use his commentary, and I've learned a lot from him in trading and how to order flow trade and with the live market to kind of use that as a litmus test against what do I think I'm seeing. So, and how does that look is if I'm thinking, boy, I really want to be short right now, and then I can hear Bob in the background. I mean, I don't just copy everything he does. I don't just let him make my decisions for me. Right. I mean, I tried that for a while, and it was hard because I didn't really know what I was doing, right? Or I didn't have a plan of my own to stick to. So, but if I'm thinking, oh boy, I really want to be short right now, but then I hear his commentary talking about we don't want to be short, I'm looking to be long here, it at least gives me a second to take a pause to say, all right, am I missing something? Is there a bigger picture that I'm not focusing on? And am I getting too narrowly microscopic on one area that's now supporting what I want the market to do? You know, I gotta see what the market is trying to tell me, not what I want to. I don't want to reinforce what I believe is happening.
Of course, and that's a big key component. Now, the reality is, if somebody is trading a completely different style as you might be seeing longs and they might be seeing shorts, or vice versa. You might be off kilter simply because of a significant difference in strategy or what you look for, and that's not necessarily somebody that you want to listen to in terms of confirmation. But when you guys are in line with what you're looking for and why you're looking for it, that's when that becomes significant. I'm personally a big believer, and I trade with people every day, whether I'm just passively watching or I'm actively involved. But to me, I like the way you put it. That's a great litmus test right there to see if, am I clear in what I'm looking at? And the ability to sort of, I guess, be partnered with, or at least be exposed to somebody who's more experienced, but in line with what you're doing makes such a significant difference.
Yeah, and it's not about just following someone in lockstep. I mean, it's just I've got a lot of respect for. Like I said, I've learned I credit a lot of my success to his room and what I've learned from him. But it's the side of like I'm still making my own decisions. I'm still executing on the plan that I see. But it's the whole side of we should need 20 reasons to get into the market, but only one reason to stay out of it. Right. And that's just kind of where it is. And sometimes it's when I feel like, man, this market just seems choppy. I really don't know what's going on. There's a lot of indecision. And then the commentary that I'm hearing from somebody is saying the same thing. It's okay, good. I'm not alone on this. It literally, like I said, it just helps reinforce maybe what my intuition is telling me is going on. And without needing permission or concurrence to make a decision either. So.
Well, and at the end of the day, of course, as a trader, look, people will follow trade signals and things like that. That has to be a short-term solution. But the reality is that a lot of times we can take situations like this and education and mentorships and things like that like this and utilize it for that congruence purpose for a period of time until we have that ability to, maybe say, okay, well, look, if nobody's streaming today, I'm still comfortable jumping into the markets because I know enough, I'm confident enough in my own decision-making. But like everything in trading, this is all a step-by-step process. You don't jump from watching a video to having confidence in a trading strategy in one day. It just doesn't happen that way. It's all a building process.
Well, and the other thing too that I'll say that I haven't mentioned or talked about is screen time. I mean, I've in this probably the past year leading up towards rounding the corner with some success, probably followed about 800 hours of just screen time, and not in the live market. I'm talking about having a strategy, having an idea, and then going back and validating the strategy, proving to myself that this is what it is. Because one of the other things too that I think is really interesting, and I see this a lot in my profession, is when you start to get creep off of your original idea. And that's where I have the strategy I want to do is I think it's a great strategy. And then 2 weeks later, you realize that you're not even close to trading the strategy you think works, and you don't even know where you made that change. Um, and that's one thing too. I got to be very, very conscious and cognizant about is, am I still doing what I want to do, or am I allowing myself to creep, off the beam a little bit from where I want to be?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I know I've said in my own trading that a lot of times, like if I'm in a trading session and I break one rule, I'm ultimately exposing myself to breaking all the rules. I think a lot of that sort of tends to be in that, if it's a small deviation, we convince ourselves that we're still trading our strategy, but one small deviation today, another one tomorrow, and another one the day after that, all of a sudden it's a pretty big shift. I think that's an incredible point. I don't think we've even brought this up on the show before. But that's a critical part of developing a level of consistency and a level of confidence, because confidence comes from knowing that you have an edge. The only way you know you have an edge is by executing consistently.
Exactly. And kind of to your point that you made earlier, like there's a friend of mine who trades, and I could always tell within about a week that he was going to blow up an account in the next week. And what it stemmed from, and I'm no different than him in a lot of regards, but what it stemmed from is I would start seeing those minor deviations in his trading behavior and trading strategy. And each time it would get more and more acceptable to deviate from it. And we start doing what I like to call a rescue trade, where you get in a bad trade and you're in a bad trade, and then you basically give yourself one shot to be right and save the account or to blow it up. And but the fact that when I recognize that this is a predictable behavior, and it all starts with one minor deviation.
Yeah. And that's key. I mean, trading involves, or should involve, in my opinion anyway, a lot of introspection and a lot of self-evaluation, because we don't have the traditional structure. And people who are maybe business owners maybe have an easier time of making this transition. But if somebody's worked for a boss that's been hovering over their shoulder their entire career, and they try to jump into this sort of environment where they have to hold themselves accountable, that's a tough transition to make, but it's a necessary transition.
Well, and what's hard too is, because like I walked into futures trading kind of.
Well, I think you're frozen.
Back?
I can still hear you. There you go. Okay, you're back.
Okay. Yeah, that was odd. But I walked into futures trading with the mindset of like, okay, I work a very technical profession that requires like just ice cold and motionless decision making. And going back on my education, I have a degree in mathematics. I'm a very logic driven person, very data driven person. So when I was thinking about trading in futures and what it was like, I got this, and then I can go to Vegas and sit at a craps table or a blackjack table and just play the odds the way the odds are supposed to be played with zero emotion behind it. So I had no idea how none of that mattered for this. So I'm going to say like it was a humbling, and that was part of the process too, was being humbled enough to realize that like, man, I am not as smart as I think I am, and I am not and I am just as emotional as the next person that's out there, and just really accepting that as well, and realizing that was the biggest hurdle to overcome was what happens between the ears once I click the button. It's got more to do with that than it does when to enter a trade. It's got more to do with what happens between the ears once you enter the trade.
Yeah, for sure.
So
now here you are on the other side. It took you 4 years to get here. What does life look like now as a consistently profitable trader?
It's a little surreal, because for years we talked about, me and my friends, we talked about what is this going to look like and how does it do? And we started off buying our own private islands, right?
Right.
And now it's just turned into like, man, if I could just pay some of my bills with this, like that would be phenomenal. And it's not confetti didn't fall down from the ceiling when it all happened. It was just kind of surreal in the sense of like, wow, this has actually happened. I'm making this happen, but it's almost caveated with a sense of like nervousness and uncertainty, because like, man, it took a long time and a lot of emotional strain and effort to get to this point. Like, I don't want to lose it. And then in turn, like every time I feel like I kind of get something new creeps in. Sure. And it's learning to fall back on the tools and what I've learned to say, what has got me to this point and how do I keep it? Right. So I've actually probably say like, it's just getting to the point where I feel like I've reached some success with some payouts and things like that. It doesn't really mean anything because I can give it all back tomorrow. Yeah. And I can give it all back in 5 minutes from now. So it's not becoming arrogant with it. It's not becoming overconfident. It's just a realization of like, this is what it took to be successful. It took several months of small successes, and it only takes 5 minutes of one really big, failure to undo it all. So stick with the small successes.
Yeah. And that is critical. I know personally, I went through the mindset of this is impossible, I'm never going to make it, to, oh my gosh, I actually have a shot at this, to I got my first payout. My first payout was $500. You might as well have handed me a check for $1 million.
Yeah.
And then of course you have the immediate reaction to that excitement is bulletproof. So you've got to get through that cycle. And so there's just, at every step of the process, there's a new emotional and mental dynamic that has to be, at least you need to be aware of in order to sort of overcome it. For some people, one issue might be a quick fix, while for somebody else it might be like this one takes me 6 months. But as long as you keep working through each step of the way, you've got a shot at really making a go of this. And there's such an incredible opportunity out there. So I want to just make sure, of course, one last shot to go ahead and fill in that form and get a shot at one of these evaluations. Kyle, you mentioned your mentor, Bob. If somebody wanted to check out what was going on there, how would somebody go about doing that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I would say the first thing would just be check out his website, targetstradingpro.com. He does have a TikTok feed. It's Trader Bob, TraderBob at Targets Trading Pro is his handle. And the TikTok kind of good in the sense of, if you just want to see, let's think of like a sports highlight reel. That's about all it is. It kind of goes through, shows the day, shows some successes or failures throughout the day, just kind of some recap. But if you want to check him out, I mean, he offers a very fair, trial for a week to see what he's all about. I mean, I can't speak enough about how he has helped me and stuff. I think he's worth checking out, but ultimately it's just, everyone's got to make their own decisions. If I can say one more thing real quick on my trading, is that one of the things that I've also realized too, especially being on this side of it, is I really have to assess, am I emotionally, physically, and spiritually balanced before trading? Because a lot of my downfalls and unsuccess was trading interfering with my family too much? Was trading interfering with my faith too much? Was it interfering with my ability to like go work out and have good physical health? And whenever I allowed trading to unbalance other areas of my life, that led towards failure. And a lot of my success came from kind of realizing that I am balanced and I am in a good position today. I can sit down and trade.
I think that's an unbelievable point. And if you guys didn't catch that, go watch the replay. Rewind to the beginning of that statement, listen to it again and again and again as needed. I am wholeheartedly in agreement with that. There is just nothing quite like being completely at peace in the rest of your life before you jump into the charts. And there can be, in many cases, nothing quite as devastating as jumping into the charts when there's chaos in other areas of your life. So finding that balance is absolutely critical. Kyle, thank you so much for sharing your time with us this morning and sharing some of your insights. Absolutely, truly incredible, and I really appreciate it. So guys, check out targetstradingpro.com if you want to check out Kyle's mentor, Bob. And come back next week. We're going to have another phenomenal show for you guys on the next Trader Bacon Show. Thanks for joining the Trader Bacon Show, where we showcase everyday traders that are getting funded, paid, and bringing home the bacon. Make sure to join us next time, Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern.